Of July 2022. Also in July, Kenya plays South Africa in Rugby League test matches in Nairobi with the return fixtures set for October. Still in July, watch the World Athletic Championships from 15th to 24th July live from Oregon, USA as Kenyan athletes seek glory. Followed by the 22nd Commonwealth Games from 28th July to 8th August live from Birmingham, England. In August, join our coverage of the World Athletics Under-20 Championships from the 1st to 6th of August 2022 from Cali, Colombia. Then, in November, catch the World Half Marathon Championships on 13th November from Yangzhou, China. Now that's what sets us apart as KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
And that is where we begin our news check. My name is Bentro Njue, and you have seen those 6 events. The event has just been launched. The occasion was at the Serena Hotel, where we have seen that there are those 6 events. But the icing on the cake, the 7th event, will be the FIFA World Cup, live from Qatar. All the matches live and direct right here on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner. Of course, with the politics, we need something to jog our minds and our bodies as well. So keep it KBC for all those events. Thank you indeed for joining us. This is KBC News Check on this 29th day of June 2022. Good morning. This is News Check, and for the next 2 hours or so, we will be tackling a lot of issues that are affecting the country, and more specifically on the political scenes. 40 days. Even in the Bible, we have lots and lots of 40 days. Yes, we have 40 days to the general polls. And we have a lot, I can say in the next 40 days, a lot is going to be happening. And today, talking about polls, IEBC is meeting all the 4 presidential candidates, I think at the Windsor Hotel, and we'll be crossing over there so that we may get that feed and hear what IEBC has to talk about. Of course, both the political divides, all the 4 candidates have raised their own issues. They want to know about the ballot. They want to know about the updated voter register. And of course, you know, that is something that has quite generated some debate. Well, that said, welcome to the program. And on this first hour, we're talking about zoning. Looking at Azimio One Kenya Coalition has announced that they will be doing, and actually have started to speak to 2 or 3 aspirants so that they may step down in favor of what they call a bit stronger candidates, and that has really generated a lot of debate. What is the risk of running? What risk are they running when it comes to politics, zoning, and democracy? Well, that is what we are going to be discussing in this first hour. And allow me to introduce my guest. In 2017, he did vie for the senatorial seat right here in the county, number 47, at the county of Nairobi. And, well, he didn't get it then, but this time round, he is confident that he will clinch that seat on a Democratic Party ticket, talking about William Wahome Kabera. Karibu sana, William.
Thank you, Mr. Jua.
A lot, actually, it's a good thing that you come from the Democratic Party, because yes, they have a lot to talk about. But before we talk about how we have seen some of the zoning, we have seen even Kenya Kwanza talking about there's some disgruntledness when it comes to parties. They're talking about some parties being edged out by the bigger parties, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Of course, we are also expecting Azimio One Kenya Secretariat or Coalition Deputy Secretary General Isabel Girenji, and as soon as she gets here, we are going to, of course, make this discussion a little bit wider. First things first.
Yes.
In 2017, you did vie, and you didn't get it. Now, in 2022, you are confident. Actually, you're oozing confidence that you're going to clinch it. Can you talk about that?
Yes. I think I started off my political aspirations in 2017 when I vied for a senatorial seat in Nairobi on Jubilee ticket. whatever happened, it's under the water. But this time, I'm back, and I want to do my thing. I want to be able to represent Nairobi residents in the Senate.
And you're going to be telling us what you're going to do for the Nairobi residents who are very keen to know exactly how the city is going to run. For the last 5 years, the governance has been quite in limbo. But away from that, what exactly happened? Is it the zoning that in 2017, is it the same zoning that you're talking about where you're told now, Wahome, let's step down for someone else?
Oh, I would put it, I think, let's talk about this zoning. Zoning comes in very many ways. You know, you can actually zone by actually having the candidates being there, and then the leadership on top actually has already a favored person. But you are there, yes, you're campaigning together with the other people, but there is a favorite, and you may not be knowing it. And that's how what happened in Nairobi in 2017. Somewhere towards the end, we were told somewhere in a meeting, a high-level meeting, that really we could not have Nairobi having, because it's cosmopolitan, we could not have the same let's say, one tribe taking up the seats.
So you had to give room.
So somewhere I knew it's gone.
And you had to give way.
Eventually, we actually went to the nominations, but the nominations, I never actually, at the very end, I never got to know how many votes I got.
Okay, is that perhaps why you jumped ship from the ruling coalition Jubilee to DP?
Yes, from that was my first lesson. I learned a lot. At this time, I came prepared, and I knew I had really to go back to my very first party, which I knew when I finished the university. That's the party I joined, Democratic Party. I did the campaigns, or even that time. So I went back to it, and I knew there, even if whatever happens, I'll still manage to go through over the nomination and be able to be on the ballot. Because the key thing was for me, and what I came to learn in 2017, it's important to be able to get to the ballot, general elections. Otherwise, nominations, I would tell you, sometimes they are very, very shady. Yeah.
And Wahome, to be very fair, is that looking at Nairobi and all the aspirants who are seeking for the senatorial seat, they're all household names.
Yes.
And more or less, you're quite a new face for the Nairobi residents. And we have seen the politics that are in the country. They kind of like people who they have been seeing, people, they like people who have been in the political sphere for a while, but you're quite a new entry.
I'd want to tell you something. Right now, going by the figures that I've got from the electoral body, we're actually 14 vying for the senatorial seat. That's
a big number.
Yes, a big number. Maybe there might be only 2 plus 1 who is Wahome who are known. That you need to understand. That the truth is that the other 2 might be known because of they have been there before. But Nairobians, I would want to tell you one very first thing is that for Nairobi, if you look at a number of the opinion polls that are being floated around, you find that 65% of Nairobians do not know who to vote for. The other 2 that you are saying that are a bit known, and because there are only 2, they are kind of taking a figure of around 35% only. Only 35%. So there is a 65%. That they do not, of residents who do not know who to vote for. Now, look at it. If the Nairobians are saying they do not know who to vote for, that means there is a big gap. Nairobians are crying for new leadership now. And that's what we are going for.
All right.
Yeah.
14 candidates. We're going to be talking about that.
Yes.
A lot have identified with themselves. There are some who are identifying with themselves with the youth. There are some who are identifying with themselves with the business people. That is what will happen. Okay. We'll see about how that goes around. And IEBC is currently at the Windsor Hotel and meeting the 4 presidential candidates. First of all, crossover. The CEO, Marjan, is currently addressing.
This information resides in the SD card. One of the information is the biographic information, which basically is information regarding the voter. And from the name biographic details, we are talking about names of the voters, their polling station, their ID number, their photograph, their polling station, their date of birth. These are the biographic information. And then the other important information that is going to be resident in the SD card, which is also stored in the King's Speech, is the biometrics of the voters on that specific polling station. So immediately a voter turns the polling station after we open the polling at 6 o'clock in the morning. The method that is going to be used, that is the default method that is going to be used to identify the voter, is the biometric. And therefore the voter will be required to place their finger, that is the thumb, on the fingerprint reader. The fingerprint reader will actually be able to identify this person. And from that, then this person or this voter should be allowed to go and be given the ballot papers for them to go and cast their vote. Assuming that we have got 700 voters in a polling station, which is actually the maximum number of voters allowed by the law, then the King's Speech will be having 700 voters multiplied by 10 fingerprints, because each and every individual has got 10 fingerprints. So we basically, during the enrollment process, we normally take all the 10 fingerprints. So in the identification process, the voter will be using their fingers. If the thumb does not work, they will use the other fingers. You can even test all the 10 fingers to make sure they are working. The reason for that is because there is a possibility of false rejection, that a legitimate voter appears to come on board, but the identification system is unable, the fingerprint reader is unable to recognize this. And this could be for several reasons. It could be because the person is doing hand labor and using their hands. It because maybe also they are masonry, they are touching a lot of stones, and also it is possible for their fingerprint quality to be not good, and therefore the default method is supposed to check, and when you place your finger in the fingerprint reader, the fingerprint, assuming that we have 700 voters, it will scan through 7,000 fingerprints, because we are talking about 700 times 10 per voter. So it will scan through 700 fingerprints to see whether this fingerprint that has been placed there matches with any fingerprint that is there. So, in case then this doesn't work, then the next step is now to use what we refer to as complementary method. And this is where we are going to use the ID number or the passport number. Essentially, the document that the voter actually used to register during registration. So we'll actually enter the ID number, or even at the back of the ID number, there is a feature that you can use from IEBC to scan, and it will actually populate the information on the screen. So which information are you going to see on the screen when you use the national ID number or the passport number? You are going to see the photo of that voter. You are going to see the name. Essentially, the details appearing on the ID is what is going to appear on the screen of that list. And with the picture, you are able to positively identify that this is a voter who is supposed to vote, and therefore you can allow. But before that, before even allow, when you retrieve this information regarding the voter, you also retrieve the 10 fingerprints that we actually use to enroll. And therefore, the voters still can be given an opportunity to still place their finger. And now the KIMS kit will search against the 10 fingerprints as opposed to 7,000 fingerprints. That gives opportunity again also for the scanner to check the quality of fingerprints, and most likely this person is going to be identified. But in case this person is not identified, even when you can be able to see their picture, we can say this is the right voter, and therefore we will call the candidates, the representative of the agents of the presidential representative, for them to come and witness. We will issue Form 32A that will be used now to confirm that this person has been identified through complementary method. So when the commission talk about complementary method, we are referring to complementary method that is used when the biometrics fail, and they can fail for various reasons like what I've stated. Now, it is also important to know that the SD cards holds information regarding biographical information and biometric. The biographical information is the replica of what is actually in the physical register. It has the photo, it has the name, it has everything, including the ID. Now, if we now turn to use of the register, and previously this is what we have done, when a voter appears at the polling station, the voter is going to be identified using biometric as a default method. If it fails, then use the complementary method. But after being identified, the clerk will look for the name of this voter in the physical register and cross it out. That was the method that we used before. And this method is prone to abuse. This is what we are trying to say. It's prone to abuse. Why? And this is what I want to actually demonstrate today. Because it is good when we can say that it can be used to check, for example, how many people have voted in case maybe there's an issue of technology. But when you identify voters through technology, the system automatically archives. It archives the details of those who have voted, meaning that if that person is supposed to present himself again, then that person cannot be able to vote. The system automatically will sound an alarm, and therefore we will know that somebody who has voted is coming back again to vote. Over and above that, the system will also maintain account and tally of those people who have actually voted. At the same time, the system is in a position to, when you are opening the polling station, it will send information as to what time that KIMS kit was opened. And then periodically, at some point of time, it will be sending information regarding the turnout of the voters who have just voted. So this information can be used to tell the country how many people have actually voted. In addition, if later on you also want to analyze the information in terms of how many people have voted, how many females have voted, how many youth have voted, this information is likely to be provided with analysis of that information. Now, if you look on the other side, and this is what we are doing before, we were identifying people through use of KIMS kit, but at the same time also crossing out the register of voter. When you do that, and when you use the complementary method, whereby we give Form 32A for those who have not been identified biometrically, but through alphanumeric search, then we cross out the names in the register. A certain period of time when people are tired, around 3-4-ish like that, and especially in remote areas where there are no observers, or maybe where there are also strongholds, it's possible for people now just to use information in the register of voter, like ID, to key in the KIMS, retrieve that information, allow the people to vote when they're actually not there in the first place. This is what we are saying, that this is something that can be exploited, and therefore it can lead to people winning illegitimately. And that is why the Commission is keen to ensure that the method that is going to be used will actually guarantee free and fair election. Now, this is what we are talking about. When you look at it, basically, it makes sense. Our returning officers will be at the tallying center, waiting for results from the presiding officers. The presiding officers are just temporary officials that we recruit. They are going to work for possibly 2 weeks. These are the people who are going to be responsible for declaring results at the polling station, and the results announced at the polling station is final. And we are going to give them a big responsibility, including possibility of them also using the details in the physical register to use in the biometrics, in the KIMS kit. And potentially, basically, allowing people, or maybe even people, to vote more than once. Because if I'm somebody's friend and is the presiding officer, and I come and I say my ID number is this, and that ID number is basically entered, this information is populated there, and I'm allowed by the presiding officer, then it is possible that you can even do it ceremoniously when people are tired. Just keep on entering the ID numbers, passport numbers, and clearing the remaining ones. So you can see that maybe in a polling session, you have got 100% turnout, 99% turnout, 98% turnout, which maybe may not be true. So to hedge against that, it is the reason why the Commission is advocating for this. But I am happy that today the stakeholders, the people who have got stake in this election, are here, so that this matter can be deliberated on. And whichever position is agreed today is what the Commission is going to go with. We are not going to stick to our guns. We are going to say that, okay, if this is what has been agreed, then let's go with it. But we must also understand the potential risks that are actually inherent in that process. Now, so that is about why use the KIMS kit to identify biometrically, and to use alphanumeric search as a complementary method vis-a-vis using now the physical register. Now, I think also the issue has been, how can you guarantee us that the technology is going to work? It's going to work without failing us, so that we can be comfortable as we are conducting ourselves, as people are voting. What assurance can the Commission give us? I think this is a challenge to us. But what I want to state is that, first of all, as we speak, in 2017, we bought 45,000 KIMS kit. And during our checking, because we have got a production factory, we are actually checking all of them to confirm how many are in a good conditions that can be able to be used during election. We actually observed that 41,000 out of 45,000, 41,000 are actually in good working condition. Now, you are also aware that, and this information is in the public domain, that we bought 14,100 KIMS kits. Now, if you add 41,000 KIMS kits to 14,100, you get approximately 55,100. We have also gazetted that the number of polling stations to be used in 2022 election is 46,233. If you subtract 55,100 from 46,233, the figure that you get, if you divide by 1,450 words, you will get that we will have 6 backup KIMS kits per word. Now, in comparison to 2017, we had 45,000. And the number of polling stations were 40,883. If you subtract from 45,000, and you divide that figure by 1450, you will find that we had 2.8 backup kits. Essentially, if you round it upward, it's actually 3 kits per ward. Meaning that we are going to this election with more backup kits compared to 2017. And therefore, this is to assure you that the mechanism has been put in place to make sure that the system is going to work. Also, what I wanted to let you know is that the KIMS kit, as I said, it works offline in terms of identification. It does not connect to any back end in terms of identification, because, like I said, the information regarding the register is the resident in the SD card. That is the biographic as well as the biometric information. Suppose we have a challenge with one KIMS kit, and based on our assessment, it's beyond repair, we cannot be able to use it. The simple thing to do is just to remove the SD card, bring the backup kit, and insert in this new backup kit, and there it is, it's going to work. It is going to pick from where actually we stopped from. And this information, like I say, is the resident in the SD card. So there is no cause to worry about, because we can swiftly be able to provide that backup kit and by inserting the SD card from the kit that is malfunctional in a kit that is working, we can be able to restore very quickly, and we work without losing any time. But suppose we lose time, again, also, the law allows us to compensate for the lost time. So we are giving you all the assurances that the technology that we are going to use is going to work and is going to guarantee free, fair, and credible election. But going back to the issue of physical register, and I want you to go to the second slide. I want us to take ourselves back to 2017, whereby this similar issue was actually litigated upon, and it was actually litigated under Civil Appeal number 328 of 2017, in a case versus where the IEBC was sued. So it was a case between NASA and IEBC. In this petition, the aggrieved party argued that voter identification and transmission of election results should be exclusively electronic. That was the argument in 2017. And the court litigated on this case, and this petition was actually dismissed. Now, on the same case, the Court of Appeal adopted the IEBC internal memo dated 27th July 2017, which stated that the procedures leading to complementary mechanism of voters' identifiers should include, as stated there, that is, the presiding officer should ensure that voters are identified using biometrics features, that is, using their fingerprints. And biometric identification is a primary mode of identifying voters. That is the ruling. And 3, where a voter cannot be identified using biometrics, then alphanumeric search as complementary mechanism will be deployed in the presence of agents. The presiding officer will only resort to use of a printed register of voters after approval by the Commission and upon confirmation that a kit has completely failed and there is no possibility of repair or replacement. In which case the procedures in Regulation 26 of the Election Technology Regulations of 2017 basically applies. I think my last slide on this, and this is basically, like I said, is just to set tempo so that it can elicit discussion between the Commission and the stakeholders. Then why are we saying that we should use? I think I've been very, very clear in terms of why should we use a physical register? Why should we not use a physical register and use the KIMS kit as as a method of identifying voters, either through their biometrics or complementary method. One is because, for one, the Court of Appeal judgment actually recognizes alphanumeric search as a complementary mechanism, which ruling I think up to now has not been challenged. It is still in force. And two, like I stated before, the printed register basically creates a haven for conspiracy in the casting of illegitimate votes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've tried my best to explain what is actually at stake here. And therefore, either I should be guided whether now you want to discuss this past, or you want me to continue and finish with the issue of the reverse path, and then the matter can be discussed together. Your guidance, Mr. Chairman. I proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know the candidates are very busy. They want to finish up with this and they go on the campaign trail. Unless you want to have a cup of tea, we finish with this and yes.
You know, to get
we finish one by one.
Finish with the print register,
yeah.
Then go to the next one.
All right.
What I want is freedom, just you cannot continue no.
All right, some of away from that, that has been Marjan Hussein Marjan, who is the CEO of the IEBC there. And some of the things that he has already talked about is something that they had raised in press we had last week, is that we're still not going to be using the manual voter register. Azimio One Kenya had raised concerns, and we will be getting deeper into that. But he says that the manual voter register is prone to abuse. But he has said that, of course, a lot of people had raised issues because some people cannot have, even have fingerprints because of the nature of their job and also because of advanced age. And IEBC, through the CEO, has cleared the air, saying that the biometrics will be the first line of defense, but they will also be having, of course, they will also be having complementary that will also be used. But first of all, let's get back to that presser. Chebukati is currently addressing the press.
Right. And then we shall take all the comments and then we respond accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this year, I wish if we is making a presentation, if we could go quickly to allow us more time for discussion. Now, I have two of my officers here who have issues to raise on the matter that has been explained here. The Paul.
Chairman, first, on the issue of the complementary system, we did write a letter on the 27th of June, and we were hoping that we would have gotten a response to that. But what CEO has said about what the Court of Appeal said was not correct. Because what the case did say at the High Court was that a complementary system must be different under Section 44A, must be different than what you have under Section 44. And in fact, they said that that is why Section 44A uses the word notwithstanding, and Section 44 says that you use technology. So when Section 44A tells you to have a complementary system, it says a system that is complementary to technology. So you cannot revert back to Section 44 again to a system under Section 44 when it has failed. Secondly, what the Court of Appeal did say was that Regulation 69 is your complementary system. And it upheld the fact that you have used Regulation 69 and upheld that is going to be taken to be the complementary system. And if you read that judgment, I will ask you to look at paragraph 27 of that judgment. I think nobody is saying that you use printed registers. We are saying that system should be in place. The law requires you to have that system in place so that if anything should fail, it should be there. What is concerning is not that the insistence is that you don't use technology. I said, yes, use technology, use all the systems that have been described, but the law requires you to have that system in place. Whether it is going to be used or not, but the law requires you to have it in place. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Saitabao Benchori, and I'm the National Chief Agent for the Presidential and Deputy Presidential Candidates for Azimio. What my colleague Paul Mwangi said is the legal position. In fact, the Court of Appeal decision that the CEO referred to was very clear. I do not want to read specific provisions of that Court of Appeal decision, but the upshot of that decision was that by dint of Section 44A, by dint of Regulation 69, the Commission is obliged, legally obliged, to use the printed register. And the use of the printed register is very specific. It is a complementary mechanism, but it is also a safety mechanism. It is also a safety mechanism in the sense that it is able, the printed register is able to, first of all, confirm that the person appearing before the clerk is a registered voter. That is why the law requires that when a voter appears, the clerk calls out the name of the voter as it appears in the printed register. Also, the reason that the law requires that the name of the voter is struck out or cancelled from the printed register is because you are able to confirm at a glance from the printed register who has voted and who has not. And lastly, the printed register has never been the problem in our elections. I think for the Commission to say in broad daylight that all the problems that we have had in our elections, and there have been many, are the fault of the printed register, I think that is not true, and it is not the position. In 2017, the problem was transmission of results. Could the Commission tell us how the printed register was involved in the transmission of results? Having said that, the law is clear. The printed register has to be used as a complementary mechanism. The law has not been amended. The Commission has not made any efforts to amend the law. Section 44A is still there. Regulation 69 is still there. And so it is our position that for elections to be free and fair, the law has to be upheld to the letter. We are concerned that if the law is not upheld, then anyone can go to court. If the printed register is not used according to the law, then someone can go to court and say these elections were not held in compliance with the law. Lastly, I want to give my colleague, George Joroge, to deal with the technical aspects of the register. Thank you very much. The technical aspects.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think you did speak to the issue of the KIMS kit, and of particular interest is the issue you talked about the SD cards. Number one, are the SD cards encrypted or not? When you talk about the SD cards archiving the data, are you manipulating the database as it is, as a user, as the respective voters are voting? Now, one of the things that has come out very clearly was the issue of the KIMS kit. Now, how likely are we to identify all the voters, in particular the prisms, in reading the data of the user, the fingerprints, in terms of guarantee? As you know, in the 2017 election, we missed about 2.5 million people to be identified on the KIMS kit. The other issue is the issue of the KIMS kit. On your tender for the KIMS kit, one of the requirements was that the KIMS kit must come with an MDM, the mobile device management. Now, this includes the issue of access to the KIMS kit on remote at each polling station. Talk to us on the issue of your connectivity to each of the KIMS kit. Do you have real-time connectivity to it or not? The other issue is on the KIMS kit also, is the geofencing. Is each of the KIMS kit geofenced to each of the polling stations? Now, when you talk about there being KIMS kit that are there for backup purposes, are they within the geofence KIMS kit or not?
I thought we were discussing the physical register.
Okay.
Why don't we dispose of that?
Uh-huh.
Then we can now move to the other issue.
Okay.
Otherwise, we shall not finish this conversation.
Okay.
I'm aware ASMI has written a letter on the KIMS kit.
Okay.
Maybe the commission will respond fully, but I may also ask our CEO to then address some of the issues raised in that letter.
Majority of the concerns, as I raised, Mr. Chair, is the issue of the identification of the voters. When you talk of, for instance, the issue of the archiving of the register of the people who have automatically voted, are you saying then the database at each of the polling station is being manipulated? Because when you archive, it means that you have either deleted or you've added somebody else. Okay.
We have another team. Let's take UDA. Then we go to Agano. Then we come to Roots. You like to say anything? No. So you then Agano on the issue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair and Presidential Returning Officer. And as I said earlier, Josephat Nanok is my name. I am the chief agent for UDA Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate, who is not here with us with his running mate because of a schedule he had done earlier. Remember very well your letter yesterday changing the timing from the afternoon to morning. Was received by us very late, and we even wrote you to reschedule the time. But I think in the absence of a response from you, we were forced to come and represent him. But he may catch us with us.
There was no afternoon session. The letter of invite talked of 9 a.m. So there was no afternoon session. But
okay, you're
yes,
joining us
yes,
if we
yes,
be continuing. We've listened to your presentation. We've been discussing internally with the running mate, the candidate and the running mate on the issue of the register. And we think that there is a very strong case to maintain the electronic register as the Commission has suggested, because our bigger interest is the credibility and transparency of this election. And I think that is very critical. You have given us an assurance that you have sufficient KIMS kits, and in fact, even an extra 6 which are a backup. We think this is fair. I don't know what the discussion around the printed register is all about. If the electronic one can be able to provide the transparency required and be able to be accessed by all voters, except in the stations which the Commission informed us, 1,111 polling stations with no 3G. I think we would like to know the assurance that this will be done in these stations, but also in the event of technology failure. How are you going to be addressing this? Because that immediately creates concerns if this matter isn't addressed. And then we also noted that you've recently gazetted the registered voters per ward. We are yet to see the gazetted register per polling station, so that we be contented with the numbers of voters you'll be registering per polling station in the various KIMS kits. Thank you.
Yes, you want to add?
Yes, I would want to add something towards my colleagues' presentations regarding KIMS kit or the use of the physical register. It is true that the physical register does open opportunities for people to walk in, pretend they are being verified from the physical register when they have not been identified through the KIMS kit, and as a result of which you could have many unregistered voters entering, or voters not registered in specific polling centers, entering into the stations, accessing ballot papers and voting by avoiding or circumventing the KIMS kit. Notably, the electronic identification of voters is a primary mode of identification. We should now not create a system that gives us a circumvent of that identification system. It will be very sad if we drive Kenya back to the place where we started many years ago, where identification was only being done through the physical register. So from my end, I would be more interested in knowing what is loaded in the KIMS kit. What register is loaded in the KIMS kit? Because even if you printed that register and what is in the KIMS kit is what is in the physical register, nobody then needs to worry. The good thing about the KIMS kit, it has digital footprints. It can actually say, we have 20 people who walked into this station, and as opposed to the physical register, if 30 people walked in, you're not able to verify using their identification, their biometrics. You're not able to say using biometrics that a real human being walked in, or that human being was only given one vote. One man, one vote, one woman, one vote. The physical register would open opportunities for one person walking in, purporting that the KIMS kit has not identified them, purporting to use the physical register, and thereby allowing even one voter to vote 5 times within a station. So for me, I think it is important we keep to the KIMS kit. It has a complementary method, and it is preloaded. In fact, what I think IEBC should be doing right now is opening the system of what you are loading into the KIMS kit. The political parties would want to know, are you loading the correct registers into the KIMS kit? Where is the audit report by KPMG? How many voters had been transferred to wrong polling stations? Have they been restored back to their polling centers? Once we verify we have the right register going into the KIMS kit, then we will have the confidence that what is preloaded into the KIMS kit is going to be okay. We are also aware of the fact that the identification system is not using the network system, because we assume you have preloaded that record into the KIMS kit. So whether there is network failure or no network failure, a voter can still be identified through the KIMS kit. The network story only comes in at stage 2, where you are doing the results transmission. And that's a discussion, I believe, which is in their agenda. But for the time being, the UDA position, the Kenya Kwanza position, is that identification of voters must have digital footprints, and we stick with the technology, no physical registers.
Gano.
Thank you, Chair. For record, we would like to say that we in Agano, and I myself as a presidential candidate, have no problem with electronic voter identification. We're speaking both from a party position, and for me, it's experiential, as I'll explain in a short while. I've not heard the CEO say that the alphanumeric will not be available. I've heard, and maybe this can be corrected, that depending on the circumstances, yes, it will be looked into, and that should give anybody, it gives us comfort. The only area that would be of worry to us is what happened if there was no connectivity and things like that. And you have said that it will be able to work, and it works offline. You have said you've learned that from the 2017 mistakes, and you are no longer in that space. If I can backtrack a little, everything is going electronic. Even for those of us in any space, I'm in the legal profession, and any opportunity to do things electronically, we are running to it. It's the way to go. And there are a lot of quotes and sayings about electronic, including, and this has no reference to anyone here, that it's only a fool who would, given the two choices, who would not choose electronic. I have been a victim of the alphanumeric myself, particularly in the last election. If there is a system of, I know a colleague out there said, the print register has not been the problem, but for me it has a problem, and particularly in the year 2017. I was running for Senate in Lamu County, and everybody knew I had got that seat. Hata wale walikuwa wananipigia kura walikuwa wanasema, wakili, hiki kiti ni chako na hiki ni cha watu kama wewe. Uende kule kwa seneti, mkutane na Senator Amos wako, mawakili wezako, Senator Orengo. But woe and behold, what happened from the alphanumeric in Pate, in Kiunga, you name it, in Boni, in those places where I couldn't reach. I woke up one day and I learned there are levels of rigging. Finally, but though there were also additional measures, like what has been referred as uchaguzi wa vifaranga, you know, where a senator who has a knack of fighting every woman who crosses his way got in instead of me. Finally, also I know that worked, but I'm saying if there is anything that can be abused. And this also has to do with identification cards. And my one of my colleagues here, we would just say a very quick vote. I think for us, we are saying, even the court is changing its own position. I must acknowledge, learned friend, Paul, I have not looked at the authority. You could have looked in between the lines. But I sense in another election, if there are holdings as to what you said, I don't think next time the court would hold what it has held in respect of it would uphold the rules you have referred to and sections as being sections that should bind the fact that the world is going electronic. So for us and for me, I want to say to you, this is the way things are going. No judge, no court in my respective submission, living in my generation, would not consider what an old English judge said, consider the circumstances, the political and the social, economic times of what we are living in, and come to a ruling that all things put on the level plane will make a ruling on the basis of the electronic. It's a way to go. It will be easier. It's more verifiable. But let my colleague mention here another experience, and then we can move on to somebody else. Jane, please, if you may.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Jane Mudiga. I'm the organizing secretary for Agano. In the past, you've had cases whereby desperate candidates would go to the ground and maybe buy ID cards from some youth or the like, or sometimes you may have a voter who have lost an ID just a few days, a few weeks or something before the day of voting. So the CEO, maybe I would want some clarification on this, that when you talk about the use of electronic system, first preference, and in this preference, actually, the most important part is identification through the fingerprint. The fingerprints. That means that the first option is using the fingertips, and then the second option would be the biometric. would only go for complementary, where you need to produce the ID as the very last resort. So that means that you are assuring Kenyans that we could actually vote. You don't have to really, miss voting just because you don't have an ID. It's a clarification I want to get.
Thank you. I think a number of issues have been raised. Marjan and Professor, would you want to address some areas around possible manipulation of the register and the KIMS when you archive the data and other areas?
Thank you. Take up the issue of whether
You
could
take
up that issue of whether political parties could be allowed to observe the e-register that is being loaded onto the KIMS kit.
Thank you.
Maybe as you respond, you might want also to comment with the fact that there is an interim order against a commission that requires you to have the registers, and your lawyers came to court and said that the registers are ready and that they are there, and an interim order was saying that you must provide them on election day. Maybe you want to comment on the issue of compliance with that order.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The issues related to legal aspects of the register. Thank you very much for your questions and clarifications. Actually, for me, it means you are paying attention to what we are discussing. And so on the issues, matters legal, issues related to Section 69, Section 44, and the issue of the interim orders that we've just been advised. I think our legal counsel, Mr. Oye, is here. He will be in a position to address. Let me address the other issues that were raised in relation to use of KIMS kit. The first question was regarding the issue of SD cards. So the first question was on the issue of SD cards and whether the SD cards are actually encrypted or not. My answer to that question is yes. The SD card is the information that resides in the SD card is encrypted, and therefore, if the SD card is going to be lost, nobody can be able to access that information unless you have the decryption key. So then the information actually inside the SD card is actually secure. The other question is on the archiving of the voters who have already voted. Yes, the system basically automatically archives any person who has voted. And archiving does not mean deleting. Archiving means that you are marked that you have already voted. And therefore, this information, if we are even to avail it in the future, we can even tell you who has voted. The only thing we cannot be able to tell you who he has voted for who. But in terms of who has voted, what is his age, what is his sex, what is the sex, and the rest, that information can be provided. How effective is the KIMS kit in identifying? How did it, I think we all know, and with that we did not have any problem in 2017 in terms of identification. In fact, I want to confidently say that by 5, almost all the voters who had turned up the polling station had been identified. Maybe at that particular time we were also using a combination of the KIMS kit and the physical register, but in terms of identification, it worked very, very effectively. We never had any challenges, and in fact, you alluded to the fact that the problem is not even identification here. The problem is results transmission. That is what you said. So therefore, we did not have any challenge in as far as identification is basically concerned. Then the other issue was in the tender document, it was indicated that the technology will come with the mobile device management system. So is that mobile device management system there? My answer to that is yes. The mobile device management system is there, and you can be able to use it to poll all the devices that have actually been deployed for the purpose of this election. And we are ready to provide you with all the information regarding the kits that are going to be deployed. And therefore, you will know which kits have actually been used for the purpose of identification. And not just identification, but also later on, they are going to be used for the purpose of results transmission. Then the other issue is regarding, are they going to also be real-time? There's going to be real-time connectivity or not? I wanted to restate the fact that I said that for the purpose of identification, the KIMS kit is going to work offline. But remember, the KIMS kit also has got 2 SIM cards, the primary SIM card and the secondary SIM card, which is basically the backup. This KIMS kit, in order for the MDM to poll them, they must also be accessible to the device. And therefore, the MDM will be able to poll using the connectivity. And therefore, you are able now to poll and say, this device is actually working, it's actually at this particular place. And therefore, the KIMS kit, and I also stated before that the KIMS kit will be used to transmit the turnout at a specific time. It cannot transmit when it's not connected. So it's going to be connected so that you can be able to poll and that you can be able to send some information regarding turnout. But in as far as identification is concerned, the KIMS kit is going to be used offline. Now, there's a second question that basically followed that. Is the KIMS kit geo-fenced? And the other backup kits, are they geo-fenced? My answer to is yes, because at the opening of the polling station, whereby the information in the KIMS kit is going to be for a given sector beyond the polling station. At the opening of the polling station, you use the QR code to lock the polling station to the 700 voters who are actually in that polling station. And therefore, the information that is going to be used for the purpose of identification is going to be the 700 maximum, or the 200, or the 19, whoever has actually been is in that polling station. So the KIMS kit is going to lock itself. It is going to lock itself to the 700 voters for that specific polling station. And therefore, all identification will be going through the 700 or the number of the registered voters in that polling station. So that is how the KIMS kit is going to work. I think there was the issue of and also the backup kits. The backup kits also, you also asked whether they're also going to be geofence. My answer to is yes. Before you use them, still, when you bring the backup kit and you insert the SD card, the SD card, you still also need to use the QR code to lock yourself to the same 700 voters. So you are not going to go away from that. You are going to use the 700 voters in that specific polling station. In terms of a gazetted, registered polling station, I think at some opportune time, the Commission is going to gazette the number of voters in each and every polling station. That is going to be done. IBC, can IBC demonstrate what is being populated in the SD cards? I think this is something that the Commission can be able to deliberate upon and provide its direction on the same. But personally, as a person, I have no problem. I have no problem in stakeholders going to observe what is actually being done. Like I said, we have got a factory specifically for producing the KIMS kit. Even as we speak, There are people who are working there. We have not reached that stage of populating information into the duplicating the SD card. But if that is requested, I'm sure the commission actually, they are hearing and they can be able to provide direction with regard to that. I also wanted to, there was a question for me just to provide assurance that that everybody is going to vote if we are going to use this method. Yes, everybody is going to vote. Who is a legitimate voter is going to vote if we use the KIMS kit. So as long as you come with your identification documents and you present yourself there, because that is the only way we can be able to positively identify you. Like I said before, the default method is to use your biometrics, your fingerprints. But if it fails, you will still give us your identification document. We will take it, enter your ID number or your passport number into the KIMS kit, and it will retrieve your information. Once this information is retrieved, we can be able to see who is there. Remember also, there are people who do not have fingers. They don't have hands. So does it mean that they are not going to vote? They are going to vote because we are going to use that method to identify them. And once we identify, we can be able to see them. The picture is actually there, and therefore they will be allowed. To vote. There was the issue of where there is no connectivity. What happens? I think we are going to talk about that in terms of results. But I wanted to let this meeting know that as a commission, we are not saying that the physical register should not be used. We are saying that if we are to use a physical register, it should be the last resort, whereby all the other methods have actually failed. And therefore, this should basically be the discussion. Thank you very much.
Yes, sorry, I see the media is on this side. The case in the High Court is coming up on 18th of July for here in the parties hearing. But meanwhile, there are conservatory orders staying the decision of the Commission to use the digital, to use the physical. They'll use the digital register exclusively of the physical register. That's my understanding from Mr. Paul Mangi and Mr. Oye. What we shall do as we wait for the hearing and determination of that case is the Commission then will proceed with the ballot printing as well as printing the register for each polling station in terms of what we have in the KIMS kit as we await that determination of that case or further deliberations. I don't know who went to court, but I'm sure the lawyers then can advise on the way forward. Instead of us discussing here, because the matter's in court, I think we leave it that way for now. We shall print the register as we wait for other deliberations in court and or any other forms of discussions and settlement. I think that will be the way out for this matter. We can move on to the next item.
There is one aspect you have not still handled, the issue of whether you can allow accountability and verifiability of the content that is being loaded, whether the Commission is open enough to allow political parties to observe the process of what is being loaded into the KIMS kit. Yes,
I got your question. I thought the CEO attempted to answer it. We have a factory where we are processing the KIMS kit. We can ask the presidential candidates to join me on a tour of that factory. You'll observe what's happening. We have not reached the stage where we are loading the data, but the kits have been being prepared. And any time now, we can agree on a date when we can tour, maybe with then we can be able to be on the same page. I think that would be good for transparency of the process. So,
Yes.
presidential candidates or their agents, that's yeah, we can work around that. Let's agree on that. But a very small number of maybe maximum 2 people from each side, because of the sensitivity of the process. So we are open to that. I think the team then, as CEO, can liaise with the good thing is that you are not many, so we can arrange this quickly, and you're all here. By the end of this session, we can agree.
Just on a related matter to that, the law mandates the Commission to set up a technology committee. I don't know when you're going to be setting that one up. I think a lot of the technical issues we are discussing will be thrashed out if you set up that technology committee and have stakeholders be part of it.
Okay. 2017, we had a committee, and somebody went to court, and that provision of the law was declared unconstitutional. So that committee was ceased to exist. So we shall not have a committee with the stakeholders, but we are available to engage, and you work with us this journey. So we shall arrange that team by the end of today. We shall agree which date we are going to the factory, and we see the processes ongoing there. So thank you. Can we wrap this up?
Mr. Chairman, I just thought the neater way to wrap it up. What is being questioned is not identification, electronic identification. It's the issue of complementarity. So our ending note should be, it's quite clear that the primary method is electronic. The issue now left open for the court is the complementarity, so that we are clear and we move on. And we'll appreciate short, precise interventions, short, precise answers, so that we can finish.
Just one last thing, Mr. Chairman. You know, it is on record that in 2017, 2.5 million voters were not identified through the KIMS kits. And those KIM kits in 2017 were still new. We have been keeping them in storage for the last 5 years. We have already been told that 4,000 of them are defective. 4,000 out of 46,000 is a big percentage. So therefore, we really are not saying we are opposed to technology. In fact, we are not saying that technology should not be applied. But what should be noted also is that our elections are not 100% technology-based. Technology is a small part of this election. The rest of the election, by law and by practice, is actually manual. The casting of the vote is manual. And a big part of it is actually the casting of the ballot. So therefore, we are not saying we have a problem with technology at all. We also know, Mr. Chairman, that these gadgets...
Are we reopening the conversation again?
No.
On the
it's just
register?
to expand the areas of conversation. And, you know, these gadgets will be used by human beings. They will not use themselves. And we have a concern, Mr. Chairman, concerning the personnel that has already been appointed by this commission. That concern was expressed by our presidential candidate in his letter to the commission on the 5th of this month. Mr. Chairman, we have noted some very worrying trends with ethnic imbalance of returning officers both at the county and at the constituency level. This country is a country of at least 50 ethnic groups. 50 ethnic groups. But we have noted that out of 47 county returning officers, nearly 10 are from one community. Out of 47.
Can I give some direction here?
Out
because
of 200.
What you are raising now is a totally new issue, which we have no problem discussing, but I thought we need to move in a structured manner. Let's finish with the agenda of the day, then we can address that issue. And I remember addressing it in the correspondence between Asmio and ourselves. We can revisit it now and make clarity on it, but I suggest we finish the agenda of the day. Yes. Yeah, then we can deal with that.
But that's an issue we want to put on record today.
Yes, I have no problem with that. We are here for you. But let's just finish the issue of the results part, then we can take a note of, you can complete that line. Thank you. Yeah, Marjan, please proceed on the result part. Then if you have any other question, please hold it so that we can move in a structured manner. But I agree that the primary identification is the biometric. The commission will prepare the registers because we don't have time to wait for the outcome of the court. We shall run out of time. The decision then to make is subject to the court judgment or ruling, whatever will come out, is whether to use the register in the manner we used 2017 or whether we shall have the register at the polling stations, and if it's required, if the KIMS kits fail, then the commission will have to make a decision whether to use it or not. I think those are areas we can revisit when the matter comes up in court. So, Marjan, proceed. I'm trying to move this meeting forward, and I know we have the ladies and gentlemen in this room, you want to run out and start seeing your voters out there, so we don't want to be here the whole day. Is it about the register?
Chairman, and I do apologize that I had to interrupt, but I appreciate the fact that you agree that you will prepare to have the manual register as a backup, as a secondary document, should the courts uphold and extend their current interim orders. But as we say that, we need to agree on what are the protocols, because by the time you escalate to fall back on the secondary document, which is the manual register, it should be agreed that this will happen, all agents will have agreed, it's escalated to this level, and approval will come at this level. So it's just not there for you when people feel like it. There has to be protocols agreed here on that point. So I hope we'll work on that going forward. Thank you.
Yes, your comment is noted. Thank you.
I wanted somebody to project the...
And briefly, not much detail, just run through. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. So it's about the results part. So what normally will happen after voting has been done, counting has been completed, the results from 34A is going to be filled by the presiding officer after the counting, and this results is going to be confirmed by the agents. Once they confirm, then the returning officer, the presiding officer, sorry, and the agents will sign the Form 34A. After signing the Form 34A, the presiding officer will now launch the results transmission application, and after that, they will capture the image of the Form 34A and transmit the Form 34A to the National Tallying Center as well as the Constituency Tallying Center. And thereafter, the presiding officer will give copies of the Form 34As to all the agents. One copy is going to be pasted on the ballot box. One copy is going to be pasted at the door of the polling station.
And after that, the presiding officer will then now move physically with the physical documents, that is the Form 34S, to the constituency tallying center. The constituency tallying center returning officer is going to receive the Form 34S, and of course, before that, we would have been in a position to access the images of what was scanned before and sent at the polling station. So through our backend system, the returning officer is in a position to access the images of the Form 34S for the respective constituency. The returning officer, even as they are waiting for the physical copies to come, they will basically populate the information using the image to the Form 34B. Form 34B is a collation of all the Form 34As. Once all the polling stations have been populated, we will use now the physical copy to verify, again, entry one by one. The physical copies received will be used to verify all entries in each and every polling station in presence of the political party agents. Once that one now is done, then the agents again will sign the Form 34B plus the returning officer and the deputy returning officer. Then from there, the physical copies again will be taken by the returning officer to the National Tallying Center returning officer, who is the chairman. And I wanted to just state maybe what is going to happen at the tallying center. We will have of course, when the presiding officers goes to the constituency tallying center, they will go with 6 ballot boxes. Presidential, governor, and the rest. So it will be expected that he will have to work and make sure that all those announcements are basically made for each and every polling station, because the returning officer for each and every polling station results come, he must be able to announce that, and therefore he will be expected to announce all of them. But because of the importance of the presidential results, and this time, that's why we have recruited two deputy returning officers. So the returning officer can now be relieved to take the physical copies to the national returning officer. And the national returning officer also will be in a position to access the scanned image of the Form 34S. And also, if they want, they can be able to start preparing their Form 34C. But a suffice to say that Form 34B is the soft copy will also be scanned and also be transmitted to our backend servers. And therefore, what is going to be available for the purpose of public and for the purpose of stakeholders is going to be the scanned copies of Form 34As as well as Form 34Bs. And at the National Tallying Center, they will be handing over and taking over of the physical forms that have been received from the returning officers. The chairman and of course his team, they will actually use the Form 34Bs that have been brought to them to verify all the entries of the polling stations using the physical Form 34As. And after verifying all of them, they will now be able to prepare Form 34C. Of course, as they do that, they pay attention to any errors that may actually occur. These errors are going to be recorded in error collection form, and this report is also going to be presented. In essence, the National Returning Officer must satisfy himself all the entries in the Form 34Cs have been physically verified by the Form 34As, and that the agents present are also going to validate the same. And finally, then the Form 34C is going to be signed by the National Returning Officers, National Returning Officer, as well as the political party agents. It's only after that then the chairman can be able to declare who is the winner. Suppose there is no winner because no one has met the 50% plus one margin and the 25% of the majority county, then it means that a run-up is going to be there, and the chairman is going to declare accordingly that in the next 30 days, then there's going to be a run-up. So that's a simple projection in terms of
how the results is going to be sent from one point to the other. Thank you very much.
In all this, what we are saying as a commission is that all the presidential candidates, we are encouraged to have agents in all polling stations. Your agents will have copies of the results. Please train your agents, find a way of also doing your own tabulations. We also had a meeting with the media. A fraternity will be deployed in the 290 constituencies for purpose of transparency. The results belong to the people of Kenya, and the commission will do its part, ensure that all the results are transmitted. There will be a public portal for the media, for the transmitted scanned copies of the forms. The images of the forms arriving at the National Tallying Center will be verified against the physical copies. Before then, the commission prepares that 4C. So all those measures form part of the results path. So let's now have your input, comments, starting with the SMEO. Then we move to Uda. Gano, if you have anything, and Roots Party in that order. Thank you.
I think you'll allow me to cover a few points, all related and very, very fast. One of them is the issue of agents. The perennial complaint in every petition, whether presidential or gubernatorial, like I participated in, is kicking out of the agents by your presiding officers. So to enhance transparency, we are proposing that you not only release the identification badges for agents to candidates 2 days before, but that identification plus the oath are the only thing an agent needs to get access, and your officers must not have any authority to send out an agent unless if an agent commits a criminal offense, in which case the police at that polling station will have recorded that incident. I want to agree with your proposal that agents should sign. Therefore, the presence of the agent, unless if they have committed a criminal offense and the party is at liberty to replace, the signing of the result form 34A and in all other elections by the agents ought to be mandatory, and your form should have a column for the agent to say, I agree or disagree with the results. We also want, it's good you are transmitting the results. You have promised us copies, but you've been printing only 6 copies of the form, 4 of which are for use by the commission. As you can see in this presidential election, we are 4 presidential candidates. Therefore, 2 copies are not enough. We don't want to ask you to print more copies and incur more money for the government. We just want the right as agents to be able to take WhatsApp images of the form once it is ready. That way, whatever you transmit electronically cannot have vifaranga via computer, because the form will be out, everybody will have it, and the press, if they are in the room, will also have it. The gag on announcing what is tallied at the station should be removed. When either the press or other people say how many votes were garnered, and they are on that form, they are not making the official announcement. They are giving the provision. They just say, this is what we witnessed. That enhances transparency. So 2 things. Your officers must not have the right to send out agents unless if there is an incident recorded by the police and the party has a right to replace. Number 2, WhatsApp images. Those who are able to have smartphones, and I'm certain that in every room there will be at least 1 or 2 people with a smartphone. We must take WhatsApp images. The story of the Baranga via computer will die at that stage, and that will enhance the transparency of the elections, which is ordered or commanded by Article 86 of the Constitution. On the door. Oh, sorry, only one point. I'm being reminded by my principal that the order of counting in every polling station, it should be clear that they start with the presidential ballot. They don't always do so. I've been at polling stations where it is not done that way. So let the commission be clear. And finally, people commit deliberate electoral offenses. That is employees of the commission, and they hide behind the word commission. We want to request you to unequivocally and publicly tell your officers that anybody who violates the electoral code deliberately, we will face the law individually. Last year I tried to privately prosecute 3 of your officers. Now that we are busy in elections, I may drop the appeal, but we need them to know that it is personal responsibility. The elephant called the commission must be dissected to that polling clerk, to that candidate, to everybody. Thank you. So that we don't come back, I'm being reminded that oh, okay. I think the audit report had already been asked in the previous by our competition in UDA, and I think we are in agreement that yes, we need the audit report by KPMG, but that now can also be bared to us as we inspect your factory.
Thank you. UDA.
Thank you, Chair. On the 9th of June, when you invited party representatives, candidates, and their agents to simulate the electronic transmission, result transmission system, the stakeholders pointed quite a number of shortcomings on that system that was presented to us. Number 1, it was not user-friendly. We asked you to make it user-friendly. And the second, there were also a number of other bottlenecks, particularly transmission and the time it was taking for information to be transmitted from a polling station to you. I think we would like to know what effort has been made, or whether you're going to be doing another simulation that includes the comments we had made. Second, we fully embrace the system of the results forms pathway that you have presented. The bigger concern is on the transmission of the results from the polling station direct to the National Tally Center. And we will ask the Commission to share with the chief agents the GPS coordinates of all the KIMS kit. I think it's critical so that we can know it is actually the KIMS kit that was deployed to that polling station that is transmitting, but also provide a backup access to chief agents so that they are able to confirm the GPS of the KIMS kits as they transmit the results. We will also want you to make assurance not only to us but also to the public that the public portal will be accessible even when many Kenyans are logging in. I think we need that assurance that information will be available at any particular time. And of course, I know the Commission has asked parties to have one agent in a polling station. we are asking you allow candidates also that are going to be in this election to be able to have agents to represent them in the various polling stations where voters will be voting. Thank you. Unless my colleagues wants to add, I think Dr. Linda Musumba is head of legal in Presidential Secretariat.
Chair, I don't know whether you can hear me, but during the 2017 petition, the question arose about the presidential, ballots, being more than the others, and then the issue arose that people are preferring to vote for the president rather than the others. But the question arose, what happens to the other five?
Say that again. There's a bit of noise here.
Sorry, Chair, I was asking, during the 2017 presidential election petition, the question arose, what happens to the other 5 ballot papers where a person does not wish to vote for the president? And the commission, through that process, explained that each ballot paper, even if one elects not to mark it, ought to put it inside the different ballot boxes. So we just wanted to know the accountability mechanism that the commission has put in place to ensure that if we're going to get 2,000, let's say, votes in a ballot box for presidential, that we shall get the same number in the others, so that we don't have a situation where ballot papers in the presidential are many more than in the other boxes. We just wanted that accountability mechanism to be explained. Thank you.
Yes, now on the, let's finish with Uda. You're done. I'll go to Agano. Then I see Asmia is not done yet. But let's finish with Agano first. Yeah.
Asanti mwenyekiti, yangu tu ni kuongezea yale yamesemwa na wenzangu na kusema hivi, ningependa kuomba commission ya kwamba muongezee matangazo ya kuwaelimisha Wakenya kuhusu haki zao kwa polling station. Ni ukweli wa kwamba returning officer hawa wenyu hata hao wanarig kushinda wengine wote. They confuse people. They act like they are small gods, and if you don't have an agent, you are at their mercy in the particular place. Na kaza kama mimi sijui kama nitaweza kupata maagent kote Madera na kwingineko. Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa ya kuandika maagent popote. And I have seen them do these things, but let me finish my point. Let me stick to the point.
Let's have some decorum in the meeting.
No. Yeah,
Yes,
I'm talking the truth. Please run more campaigns, please, on educating on their rights. I agree with the honorable running mate. Allow people to use electronic gadgets to capture what's happening, because there's a lot of abuse that goes on there. And one more point from us, Bishop, very quickly.
We want to seek leave, attend to other matters, but we have a very robust team behind us. We apologize for leaving before the end. But duty call.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. My question is just direct to the point. CEO has just told us that every Kenyan who is legitimate to vote has right to vote. I don't know what arrangements are in place regards the people who are likely to be in the hospital or post-pray. They are not fully incapacitated. Others are aged at home. What are the arrangements to have them receive their legal right to vote? Thank you.
Yes, we want to deal with those comments.
Mr. Chair.
Is it about the results?
Yes.
Yes, transmission, yeah.
Mr. Chair, you talk about 1,111 polling stations. Mr. Chair, you talked about 1,111 polling stations that do not have connectivity to 3G. What methodology are you going to use to have access to all these polling stations? The second issue is the issue of the transmitted images. They will be stored in your servers, and you said you will have an access to a portal. Are you going to allow us to have an API access to that portal? And are we able to get it maybe 2 to 3 weeks prior for purpose of integration? The third issue is the issue of the transmission that has been raised earlier. Is that the process wasn't as successful in the simulation? Are you able to give us, number one, that the same can be redone again? Number two, whether the same can be commenced where all the police stations are tested so that we are able to successfully stress test the entire infrastructure. Thirdly, in the 2017 elections, there was the issue of the servers. Are we having our data stored locally, or is it being hosted outside? And if it is stored locally, how certain are we that the entire transmission from the entire 46,000 polling station will be successful? Additionally, Mr. Chair, just on the earlier issue of the KIMS kit, you did transfer from the old infrastructure provider to a new service provider with the Smartmatics. How certain are we that the entire data that was originally stored by the earlier service provider has been transferred? This in regard to the biometrics data. That information has it that was not successfully done and was not successfully ported. And in that issue, if it was successfully ported, are you able to provide us a data destruction certificate from the earlier service provider, guaranteeing that the entire data that was originally stored by them has been destroyed so that the new service provider has access to that? And finally, Mr. Chair, the data will be transmitted from each of the polling stations through a secure connection. How secure is the entire connection? Because earlier the CEO alluded to the fact that the transmission or each of the KIMS kit will remain offline until the time of connection. So technically, any KIMS kit can be able to transmit, because technically it means that if the KIMS kit are not necessarily online, the issue of geofencing is not there. The CEO talked about each of the KIMS kit will be geofenced. That is not the case, because what is geofenced technically is the SD card, but not the actual hardware, which should be restricted to operate within a given area. So what you have locked within each of the polling station is the SD card, but not the actual hardware that we expect should be locked. Because if you don't lock the specific hardware, we have information that about 4,000 KIMS kit are lost. So technically, you're saying that anybody can walk in with any KIMS kit and be able to have access to the same. So provide us that update at least so that we're able to be sure of that. Then finally, the connectivity issue, Mr. Chair. Just for a second. Yeah. We are saying that each of the polling center will provide an image. I mean, the capability of each of these network transmitting more than 24 GB of data within any given time, owing to the fact that every one of them will transmit data at one given hour, will be impossible. In the last 2017 election, the biggest challenge was that the data was transmitted at the given time and was text data. This time it will be image data. So if our infrastructure cannot have the capability to host this data on real time, we'll have a serious crisis. There's a possibility that your data centers will not support this capacity, and we would like the same done with an actual testing. If the last testing wasn't successful, can you show us by a demonstrable test that is actually going to work? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lastly, Roots Party.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Chairman, for hosting us and the other presidential candidates. We'd like to appreciate what you have always done. You have, as you mentioned, an open door policy, you and your commissioners. Thank you for all listening to our concerns. But for now, my presidential candidate and myself would request leave. We were here the first ones in the morning We've just started our campaigns and we would like to attend to other matters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will ask Professor, you and the CEO and anybody from the technical team to make comments on the issues that have been raised. But just suffice to say that at every polling station we shall have sufficient result forms for all the agents of presidential candidates who will be in attendance. Yeah, only 4 presidential candidates, and 4 forms will be available in each polling station. So, but again, as a commission, we shall allow transparency. The media, yourselves, your teams can take WhatsApp images of the results. We have no problem with that. Tabulate your results, come to the National Tallying Center with your results, so that we compare what we have and what you have. That's what we are saying for transparency purposes. So Professor Marjan.
At least I'm safe. There are a number of issues. I will only respond to some. I will leave others for my colleagues, including the CEO. The starting point is the issue of kicking out of agents by POs. We had discussion with our staff yesterday. As you may be aware, we have all our national staff undergoing a planning meeting as we speak in Bomas, planning for the election. And one of the things, one of the discussions we had was about agents. It is not the intention of the policy to kick out any agent of any political party or candidate. And if the allegations of agents being kicked out, then the commission needs to be alerted, the presiding officer needs to be alerted, the county election manager needs to be alerted so that action is taken against those POs. The issue of agents signing results form, it is provided for in the regulations. Agents will sign the results form, but from experience, we know some agents of some candidates, when their candidates are not winning, they don't want to sign the form. And the law envisages that not signing by an agent of the result form does not nullify the result. I think we should be clear on that as well. Okay? The issue of agents taking pictures of the forms, I think we discourage pictures in the polling stations because we want to preserve the sanctity of the privacy of the voter. And if this can be done in a manner that does not expose, then the commission can have deliberations with stakeholders and see how that can be provided in terms of just taking an image of the result. We can discuss how we can do it. I don't know whether the legal team of IEBC will be in agreement, but I think we can discuss that. Okay? Result transmission simulation challenges. I don't know, somebody has a hand up and I'm still responding.
Thank you. Just one interjection. I think the issue of saying that we cannot have cameras in the polling station because you want to respect the sanctity of the secret vote. Nobody is taking pictures in the booth where the person is. That is where it's not allowed. But in terms of taking the result form or taking a video of the returning officer making the announcement, I think we are permitted to do that.
I thought I said we will sit with you guys and agree on a protocol. Is that a problem? Okay? I didn't say otherwise. Okay? In terms of results simulation, of course, it was a simulation, and a simulation is to test. And when you test, it can either pass or not pass. We did a simulation. There were a few challenges. One of the main challenges was that all our MNOs, mobile network operators, were not on board. They had some logistics in terms of moving some of the kits to the far distant counties where the testing was to, result transmission was to happen. So we had a few challenges, and we had internally said we will redo it again. And so when we are having learned lessons from that, the challenges that we had, so we will advise you accordingly. Now, yes, the GPS coordinates of all polling stations will be shared with political parties. We actually gave GPS coordinates to the Communication Authority, and that is how they mapped out polling stations or polling centers that are outside 3G coverage areas. So this can be shared with political parties. Public portal accessibility, I will leave to Marjan to address that. In terms of agents, one agent per party not being enough. We have classrooms as our polling stations. And you know our primary schools, how small the classrooms are. We have elective positions where, for example, in MCA, in the last election, in the range of 40 candidates. Just one elective position. And we have a huge number of independent candidates. So if each candidate is to have an agent, that classroom will be congested. Again, we need to have a discussion on how to better manage the agenting process so that the poll officials and the agents can be accommodated in the classrooms that we have. It is not our intention to shut out anybody's agent, but we need to operate within the spaces that we use as polling stations. Now, the question was asked, how do we ensure the 6 ballot papers that you give to a voter is accounted for? It is the Commission's desire that ballot papers issued to a voter are all placed in respective ballot boxes. We've even made it easier to match the color of the ballot paper with the lid of the ballot box. And this is for purposes of ensuring that the voters are guided. And part of our trainings is to ask our presiding officers to ensure that ballot papers issued are put in respective boxes. If you don't want any candidate, leave it blank, but put in the respective ballot box. But sometimes the reason earlier on when we were discussing the issue of the register, the reason why we are saying putting more emphasis on the digital register is because when there is this manual register, if in that particular locality is a stronghold of a particular, for example, presidential candidate, and if they cannot agree on the other seats, at least they agree on a presidential candidate. So in that respect, they may issue ballot papers of a presidential candidate and put in the presidential ballot box, and they may not bother with the others. So this sometimes makes a disparity between the figures of voters for presidential and the other candidates. And hence, it's part of the reasons why we are saying, let's have more on the digital. Our focus should be more on the digital register than the ballot, the physical ballot paper, ballot register of voters. So we will train, it's a matter for training, we will train our presiding officers to ensure that the 6 ballot papers issued to a voter are all accounted for in the different ballot boxes. There were issues about somebody asking people in hospitals their right to vote. I think there is so much the Commission can do. We have designated, gazetted polling stations. We cannot convert every hospital bed to be a polling station. And we have no capacity to bring every 6 patient in a hospital to come to a ballot, to come and vote in a polling station. It is a shared responsibility. As Kenyans, if you have relatives, friends that are able, that can be taken to vote, we will be more than happy to welcome them to the polling station and to facilitate their voting. Reference was made to the 1,111 polling centers with no 3G and perhaps what arrangements we are doing. We've had similar incidents in 2017, and as I've always responded to on this matter, funds allowing, we will deploy satellite modems to ensure that we have coverage in terms of network connectivity in those areas to facilitate transmission of the image of the result forms. In terms of API access, I'll leave it to Marjan. You can deal with that. And also handle that together with the stress test for simulation in terms of the digital images that comes to our servers. On the cloud storage, is it locally? We are not using any cloud storage this time. We are using our resources within the territory of Kenya. We are not outside the country. And so, in the event that there will be a cloud, it will be a cloud within the Kenyan space. But for now, our focus is on the infrastructure that we have deployed to be used within the country in terms of the primary and secondary data centers that we have in the country. The issue of all data in MOFO and the transmission of data from one service provider to the other, you can, Marjan, address that. As well as the geofencing of kits. Of course, geofencing, as you rightly put it, can only happen once they are online. But the beauty with the kit is that once it gets locked to that particular station, it cannot be used for another station. And because there is also a SIM, and if this SIM is active, we also need the kit to transmit voter turnout data at intervals of 2-3 hours. So ideally, the kit should be connected to enable that transmission of that data. But for purposes of the register, we already preload it, and we do not need connectivity to access details of voters in terms of identification. So I think I'll invite Marjan to finish off the remaining questions. Thank you very much.
Further clarification. The question of presidential ballot. Regulation 83 requires that, Ben Sihanya, the regulation 83 requires that the presidential shall be announced first and that's the rule. But then there is the issue of if the presidential ballot was mistaken placed at the numbers, and yet you are to start with the presidential ballot. In some cases, there have been problems and discrepancies as a result. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the issue of the counting of the votes, I think the regulations are very clear. It starts with the presidential ballot box first.
Okay.
And so that is not in dispute. It's already part of our training
thank you
program.
For joining us.
Now, for purposes of
this session on youth as partners in blood service. My name is Rebecca Nyankia. I work with the National AIDS Control Council. I am the program officer for adolescents and young people. So really, young people are very close.
What is happening?
This session is on youth, as I said, youth as partners in blood services. And I don't know about you, but as myself, when I was 18 or 15 or in campus, I was obviously not.
We have been overrun.
Blood or organs.
Is it a technology failure?
I understand why it's an important conversation for us to have.
Complimentary.
So I think it's important for us to figure out how to engage young people more and how to make this an important cause for them. Given that they're the largest number.
But anyway, if a ballot paper,
for that reason,
if a ballot is cast in the wrong ballot box,
but we also have some people joining us.
We will not transfer it to the right ballot box. And I think Owie, you can correct me. It is a spoiled.
So when we get into the
strange,
it's
strange.
To put in
stray ballot paper.
So that we are able to
if it is a stray ballot paper, it's not counted as a valid vote.
The purpose of this session
and that is the procedures that we have. Okay? It's already taken care of in terms of our training. In fact, we have a spoiled.
So the purpose of this session is that we
rejected
of young people. What are some of the challenges that they face? In terms of blood
you may want to come and elaborate on that, Owie.
And how this can be a relevant conversation for them as
I'll give you a chance to elaborate on that. But if a ballot paper is not in its rightful box, then it's not counted as a validly cast ballot paper. Okay? I don't know if if it answers. Okay. Marjan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something before Marjan answers. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the session, and we just want to note that obviously this is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the process is credible and believable. And I just wanted to raise an issue about procurement, and that concerns the procurement for the printing of the ballot paper. We want some more information about where the printing is being done, who is doing it, what company is responsible, and perhaps the ownership of that company. And secondly, the question of the procurement of technology. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, you can hear me now. No, stand up then. I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, that we appreciate the process of this conversation. Obviously, we appreciate that the election is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the electoral process is credible and believable to the public. One area that concerns us is the question of the printing of the ballot papers. We want to know who is printing the ballot papers, where they are being printed, and we want to make sure that their custody is secure, and we want to make sure that you can assure us how that security will be given for the ballot papers. It will be important for us also to know who owns the company that is printing the ballot papers. Secondly, it's a question of technology. We understand that Smartmatic is a company that is registered somewhere in Panama is providing the technology. We'd like to know, again, the ownership of the company, the connections to the company that people in this country may or may not have, so that we can be sure that the procurement process is transparent. I think you'll appreciate our concern on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What I would like us to do, Prof, what I suggest we do is let Marjan complete the first set of questions, and then I will invite you, Professor, Chair of the Election Operations Committee, together with the two commissioners, Justice Nyangaya and Commissioner Masit, recently traveled with a team to the company where ballot papers are being printed. I think then you can share some insight on that after Marjan is done.
Okay, sir, thanks. And before Marjan, come. Well, you want to read from there? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity. But I would like to pass the same to our ICT director. We have got a technical director, ICT, who is here. And I would want him to address himself to the issues that have been asked technically. So please, Mike, come forth and deal with the issues that have been raised.
Good afternoon. I'll go through the technical questions that were asked. The first one, simulation, that there were some issues raised in the last meeting. It was not user-friendly. Have we addressed? The answer is yes. We've been working with the vendor since 9th to improve on some of the features. For example, it was not clear in each county, in each constituency, how many results had been received so far. That will become more clear in the new version we are working on. Number 2, assurance that the public portal will be accessible. I wish to confirm again, it will be on the public internet, accessible to the media, observers, and the general public. In addition, we are working on the API. Someone asked when you'll have access. We understand you need time for integration of the API. We are working on this, and from next week, we're going to start engaging with the technical representative of all the major political parties, the presidential candidates, so that they understand the technology we are using. We work together on technical issues like API, so that they are ready as well to prepare themselves. As the chairman said, if they want to do their own parallel tallying. I've answered on API. Data migration. There's a question on what assurance that we've migrated and deleted data from the previous vendor after migration to the new vendor. The fact is, we have not deleted data from the previous vendor because that data remains reference. We do not want to delete its reference and will be retained until we have maybe at least 3 years, because it is a reference data that we paid for. So there's no need to give you evidence of deletion. We have not deleted it. We still keep it as reference. But the entire register, as at that time of 19.8, has been migrated to the new vendor, In addition, we added about 2.5 or so million voters registered through ECVR 1 and 2 and deleted dead voters and people who had registered with fake documents. And as the chairman announced, the register now stands at 22.1 million voters after all that is done. The last is geofencing. Geofencing of the tablets. Geofencing means the tablet is marked to only operate from a certain point using satellite technology to mark where it is at any single point. There's a debate on what to do. Do you geofence because it consumes a lot of power? Do you geofence and use so much power that you cannot, as a result, work with the kit the entire day, transmit result, transmit logs? Most of these kits, we expect them to work for at least, I think, 12 hours. So we decided to select that instead of geofencing, we keep entire serial numbers of all the kits, and we assign each kit to a specific polling station. This data will be shared with all the political parties before the elections so that you are able to verify post-election or during the polling that the same kit that was used, the same kit that we shared is in a specific polling station is where it's supposed to be. I realize your concern here was that you are saying 4,000 kits have been lost and can be used to transmit spurious results. This cannot happen. In the security we have deployed in the new system, and indeed even in 2017. Before, in the production facility that you are going to visit, you are going to see that the servers that will receive result will be pre-configured to know which kits can transmit result, and only those kits which it knows can transmit. Nobody else can install that software because they do not have access to that software, and that software is the only software that can transmit results. That will address your concern that there are 4,000 kits that are somewhere which can transmit result. Secondly, I wish also to clarify that we've not lost 4,000 kits. We bought 45,000 kits in 2017. We have tested all of them. About 41,000 of them are working. 3,000 are not working, and they are available for you to see. They are not lost. Hopefully I've addressed all the technical questions that were asked. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Prof, the issue of the ballot paper factory.
Thank you, Chair. The ballot paper printing farm, Professor Mutua wants to know more about it. We also wanted to know more about it as commissioners because we are not involved in the procurement process, as you may know, as commissioners. And therefore, the commission directed that my committee go and inspect and see and quality assure on behalf of the commission and the people of Kenya that we have the right firm doing the printing of ballot papers and other statutory forms for us. I went with Commissioner Nyangaya. Maybe you stand up wherever you are. I also went with Commissioner Masit. And so the three of us us, and we had 2 technical staff accompanying us, one from the Directorate of Voter Registration and Election Operations, and another staff from the Directorate of Procurement and Supply Chain Management. The company that has been given or awarded this contract is Inform Lycos. This is a company owned by a Greek national. It's a company that has been in security printing business since 1897. It is listed in Athens Stock Exchange since 1994. It has a strong European business footprint. It does print works for a number of countries in Europe. In addition, it does work for you in UK and also in US. It also does work for institutions and business companies in Middle East and also in Africa. They have 6 production facilities, and these facilities are spread across 3 European countries. We managed to visit 2 of the countries. We visited the main production facility in Athens. We also visited the other production facility in Romania. It employs over 1,400 people. The company produces, or rather measures in financial, does work for financial institutions in a number of European countries, UK and US. They do a lot of digital printing. They do security printing. They are involved in digital transformations, and they also do distribution services. The company is ISO 14298 certified. It is ISO 9001 certified. It is ISO 14001 certified. It is ISO 2701 certified. It is ISO 4501 certified, and it is ISO 30301 certified. It has various certifications for various activities, including security printing certifications. As a commission, we were interested in their preparation. As of the time we visited, which is I think slightly or less than a month ago, it had procured over 31 tons of UV dull security paper with custom-made watermark as per IEBC requirements. And what they procured is almost 75% of the requirements for the entire printing of the poll materials that we require for the election. The remaining 25% was in another facility which they get their raw materials from in Italy, and it was ready for shipment as and when they are asked to bring over. They had procured 100% of customization inks required, which were majorly 3 different types of inks, and they had required 100% of what was required for the entire print works. So in terms of capacity, we are very confident that they have the capacity to deliver. I was in the committee that was overseeing print works in 2017 for the ballot papers. I visited Al Ghurair severally then, and having had the opportunity to visit this time, this particular farm, I can confidently say they have twice the capacity of Al Ghurair. In fact, more than twice the capacity. The main production facility will be in Athens, but they have a redundancy parallel site in Romania which has identical equipments. The same equipments in Athens are the same equipments in Romania. And that can be used as a backup site in the event of any disaster happening in Athens. So as a commission, we are completely satisfied with their choice. They have the capacity. They are involved in businesses far more than the little contract we have given them. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, they are listed in the Athens Stock Exchange, and I don't think they will be doing any monkey business to jeopardize their vast business interests they have in several continents. And so that's the assurance we can give, Professor Makau Mutua. If there is anything else you want, we can ask you to go and see for yourself if you can pay your ticket. We were not even allowed to carry our let alone cameras, even our phones into the production facility. Whereas in Al Ghurair, we used to roam with our phones. So they are far more serious, and we believe we have made the right choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I want to give way forward to this meeting. I recognize the presence of the UDA presidential candidate and the chief agent. I believe you are ably represented is it a question on ballot paper? Prof, so you don't move, stay there. I just want to say that the technical team will actually be arranging a meeting with the technical teams from the 4 presidential candidates on the issues of technology and visitation of our factory. So that is being done, and also other issues which we may not exhaust here today, then can be discussed in a follow-up meeting next week. We may not be able to exhaust everything, and because we also understand the other schedules. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up to what Professor has said, and the team that is busy. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Now the team that did visit Greece and Romania to check all these preparations, what you say gives us really a lot of confidence. However, we cannot ignore history. This is the farm that in 2019 was linked to the postponement of elections in Nigeria because they were unable to deliver on time. So they might have all those security features. What guarantee did they give you? Because in Kenya, you understand even the impatience we normally have when the station is not open for 2 hours. So if we have to postpone this election even by a day, imagine the kind of crisis we'll be dealing with in this country. Did you ask them about that particular occurrence, and what guarantee did they give you that we'll have these documents delivered in time?
Thank you. First of all, we asked the same question. You botched Nigeria elections. Why should we trust you? The first thing they told us was they were never contracted to do the Nigeria election. The truth of the matter was the Nigerian Electoral Commission contracted a local contractor who subcontracted a Chinese firm to do the ballot paper. The Chinese firm failed to deliver. and they were only contacted at the 11th hour to help them to print the ballot papers that were used in the finally in the election. So they were not the people who were contracted who made the election to be postponed. I hope I'm clear, because we asked the same question. The other thing that probably I want to talk about, which I think it was part of the questions that Azimio had forwarded, and I am by Chairman Azimio is cleverly sneaking in their questions instead of waiting for a formal response in this forum. I didn't want to stop you from entertaining them, but one of the things is about the security features of the election ballot papers. I sometimes joke with my colleagues from other EMBs in the African continent that our ballot paper, the Kenyan election ballot paper, has more security features than some monetary currencies of some African countries. We have 8 security features on our ballot paper. If you want the details, some are visible by the eye, others are invisible. Some you need an extra magnifying lens to see. Some you need, the UV lights to see. So there are all manner of security features which we can discuss with you, with your teams when you visit us. So our ballot paper, in short, is secure. If you want more details, we'll share with you when we meet the groups, especially when you are going for the factory visit. We can have a discussions around the exact features. We are also cautious not to kuanika nje alafu mnaenda kwa mahali ingine mkatengeza vitu zenu, si ndio?
Thank you, Prof. I want to ask to give closing remarks. I'm aware there are many issues, but we can't exhaust them today. My proposal is that each of the candidates, presidential candidates, should have a technical staff of 2 to meet with our technical staff and deal with the issues that we have not covered here. Number 2, we received a letter from Simeo yesterday. We are going to respond to each and every issue you have raised. And also, because there are matters of public concern, we shall share that with the rest of the candidates and the Kenyans at large. And so we cannot exhaust this meeting issues today.
Yeah,
yes.
I just want to.
I'll give each team a chance to say something, but go ahead.
You had given us an assurance, Chair, that you'll give us an opportunity to raise the issue of the personnel of the Commission. So if, Chair, you could allow me, all these things we are talking about, this exercise will have a human element. The Commission has already recruited returning officers both for the county and for the constituencies. It has also deputy returning officers for the constituencies. Chair, we have noted with concern that there is a great tribal imbalance, ethnic imbalance in the composition of those returning officers. If you want the details, Chair, Kenya is a country that is made up of at least 50 communities, diverse communities. But when it comes to the returning officers at the county level, 10, nearly 10, because there are 8 from one community. And that community has a presidential candidate in this election. By comparison, the next community that has a candidate in this election at the top level only has 4 returning officers at the county level. Chair, we have also noted that At the constituency level, when it comes to returning officers and deputy returning officers, we are talking about 290 plus 290, 580. Out of 580 key personnel at the constituency level, we have nearly 100 from one community. I have the figures.
Can we answer?
Yes, I have the figures. I have the data. I have compared, even with the strength of these communities when it comes to the population of the country. The community that I'm talking about that is leading is not the community that is leading in terms of the general population, but yet in every aspect, they have at least double the number of personnel. Chair, you will note that these returning officers are the ones who are recruiting the actual personnel that will conduct this election at the polling station level. That is the real theater of operations for this election. And therefore, if we have...
we have understood your question.
Yes.
Can we
and lastly, on the same issue, we are already receiving complaints. We are already receiving complaints from some of these places where these officers are deployed. We're talking about Kisii, we're talking about Busia, we're talking about Bungoma. We are receiving complaints from the ground that the recruitment of presiding officers is not going, is going in a very skewed way. And therefore, kindly address that. These concerns will be followed by a written document. Thank you very much.
So, do we wait for the written or?
You can respond.
Yeah.
We will still follow it because I've not expressed everything that there is to express because of time.
Thank you. Prof, you want to say something? But as Professor speaks, I don't think there's any institution in this which has the face of Kenya as does have. But Prof, go on with it. And right now we have officers in Bomas. The face of Kenya is in Bomas. But Professor...
Thank you, Chair. The reason why we said we wanted to meet in camera is because some people get excited with camera. This is to politicize this
Unless
function.
you want to give me a right to respond.
Excuse me, you have asked a question, I will have a right to respond.
Do not attack my character. I'm here, I can defend myself.
I want to respond to the question in my own manner.
Character.
Okay?
Some order, please.
IEBC recruits personnel in this manner. When there is a constituency position, the recruitment is locked to the constituency. There are 290 constituencies in Kenya, which therefore means recruitment is based at the constituency level. The DRO, the Deputy Returning Officer, the Returning Officer are both recruited and their ID must read they come from born and brought up in, or born in that constituency. This is to ensure we have the face of Kenya in the commission. When we have a county position, because we devolved our functions in 2017 when we came to office ourselves, we started the county manager position. The first criteria for employing somebody as a county manager or a county accountant or a county ICT or county supply chain is your ID must read that county. The Commission has moved away from using temporary returning officers more than a decade ago. For anyone to insinuate we have just recruited a ROS based on skewed tribal affiliation is misleading and wrong. We recruited our staff, some of them as far back as 2012. They are all permanent and pensionable staff of the Commission. In 2017, when there were by-elections all over, the Commission had a disciplinary process, having called all returning officers that had issues in their constituencies. We dealt with them. And the reason why we moved away from temporary arrows is because we want people who are on permanent and pensionable terms, who in the event something happens, they have a lot more to lose than just the 2-3 months they are hired. If you go to Bomas of Kenya today, there are 890 personnel of IEBC on full permanent and pensionable terms. They are the ones who are going to oversee the election. They oversaw the election in 2017 and in 2013. Let's not politicize the staff of IEBC. We are only recruiting temporary deputy constituency returning officer, one position. We have a permanent returning officer on permanent and pensionable terms, recruited in the manner I described earlier. And we have a permanent and pensionable deputy returning officer. So we are having an additional one that is temporary, so that we have in every constituency one returning officer and 2 deputy returning officers, one of them being temporary. And the temporary returning officer deals mostly with only logistical arrangements and not results. At the county level, we have a full-time permanent and pensionable county returning officer. What we have only done is to give him one temporary assistant to help him in the process. But at his disposal is a county ICT, a county accountant, and a county supply chain. So the issue of tribalizing IEBC or balkanizing into one of the 43 ethnic tribes does not arise. We are not a tribal institution. We are a national institution undertaking a national mandate. And our focus is purely on that. If you have a problem with any postings and you have an individual case, please come and see the chairman and say, I have an issue here. And we will deal with it. But criminalizing and giving an impression that the commission is only serving one ethnic group or ethnicity is wrong. We will not entertain that kind of, judgments by anyone. Our staff, we will defend them as much as it has to be, because we want them to be nationalists and to serve this country, regardless of where they are posted and whom they will be serving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Prof. All the tribes of Kenya work for IEBC, including the smallest tribe. So, if you have any data to the contrary, share with me. There was a hand here. Has your issue been addressed? Yes, Professor.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Kithure Kindiki. On behalf of the UDA and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, Mr. Chairman, we want to state that we have full confidence in the Commission and the returning officer of the presidential election. Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have been represented here since 8 o'clock, and we've been updated that our team has raised most of the issues that we wanted to raise. I will only require, now that the presidential candidate is here in person on his behalf, you allow us 3 minutes, which I will share 2, and 1 member will share 1, and we'll finalize our submission. Mr. Chairman, we will be writing to you formally later today. I hear our counterparts, our competitors had also written to you, the Azimio group. We'll also be writing to you later today on the number of technical issues and operational issues which we think need to be addressed urgently. The one thing that we will request in that letter is an urgent response, because we only have 4 or 5 weeks left and we need to be ready. Among the issues, Mr. Chairman, is the issue of the KPMG audit of the register. The gaps that were identified, we want to know them in the spirit of the transparency of the electoral process, both before, during, and after. We'd like to know what those gaps were and whether they have been addressed satisfactorily, because that is very critical. Secondly, if we could even have a copy of that report, because I think they're auditing a public process. It should not be a secret. It should be available even to the media, so that we know what gaps exist, when they will be addressed, and so forth and so on. Number 2, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the loading of the data into the KIMS, I don't know at what point the agents of the various parties will be allowed to, at least, I know it's a huge process, transferring the manual register into the KIMS and loading the KIMS is a very huge and burdensome process. But the agents of the candidates can be allowed to at least sample or have access to that process, again, just for assurances that everything is okay, so that we are sure whatever is loaded electronically is consistent with what would be available manually. Thirdly, the visit to the printer, I think also should be, of course it's our business to organize, but we need facilitation from your side in terms of timelines, so that we also arrange for visas and tickets for our team who wants to go and see and visit the plant, and maybe synchronize with our competitors, so that we are getting on the commission with a separate visit. Thirdly, we are a bit dissatisfied with the response the commission has given on the issue of geofencing of the KIMS kits. Extremely dissatisfied. We raised it in our letter, we'll say why. Because the fact that you have said this KIMS kit, serial number this, is assigned to a polling center this, is not enough. Because the transmission of results can take place in a nearby forest and still within the same location. So there is need for the place where that transmission will take place to be controlled to the best possible location in terms of georeferences. Finally, we have a general issue on compliance by the players in the presidential campaign with the Electoral Code of Conduct, which every candidate signed. We've seen incidents of inter-party violence and intra-party violence. We have had an incident in Jakarta where our rally was disrupted violently. We have also seen our competitors the issues in Marsabit among themselves, in Marsabit, in Garissa, in Mandera. It's worrying. Our view is that although the commission does not have prosecution powers, because we saw your statement, but I'm sure there is something you can do, including warnings or whatever other method you can use to enforce that code of conduct so that the election is peaceful. I'll donate 1 minute to Moses Kuria, a member of the team. And half a minute for you, and you won't have a and we will also that our friends spoke a lot, so there's need for balance of airtime. 1 minute for Moses Kuria, 1 minute for Veronica Maina.
I just do the minute, please. We need to move on to the next issue.
Thank you. I am concerned about the issue of agents, because Professor Guli has said that their primary concern is to protect the commission staff, which is rightly so. But our primary commitment is to protect our agents. Elections are not stolen. Elections are lost by agents. So therefore, my concern is from previous experiences of the last elections. The issue of turning away agents on polling day. So the agents turn up, or you don't have original.
We have already discussed that issue. It was raised in the morning. I think your team were here.
Please, let me seek your indulgence.
For to avoid repetition, yes.
Please, at the risk of annoyance. So this agent stands up at the polling center. They are told you don't have original oath of secrecy. You don't have original agent accreditation form. You don't have the badge. My question is it possible that you can have a pre-verification on a day before, maybe for the oath of secrecy and the agent form, so that the only thing that's retained by the commission, by the returning officer, is a badge? In 2017, in Kitui County, a Jubilee party had most of the agents stand away up to 2 o'clock. I'm not saying Professor Makamoto had anything to do with it, but up to 2 o'clock, Jubilee agents could not access, and have been involved in a number of by-elections after that. And this is a very, very, very serious problem. Secondly, and related to that, Professor Kuri has said that we want to minimize the issue of photo taking in the polling center, and rightly so. But what happens is that returning officers and presiding officers curtail excessively communication, so that even if there is a problem, we don't get to know about it. And I'll give an example of the Msabweni by-election, where we had serious problems communicating with the agents on the ground, because the returning officer becomes a presiding officer, a power by themselves. You cannot make the phone call, you cannot do this. Why are they agents? How will we know when something goes wrong if presiding officers develop their own rules on the ground? Finally, on the issue of mass transfers, we are dissatisfied with the vague answer that was given about the 3 officers and the action being taken. The reason being that one of the cabinet secretaries had said publicly to one of the presidential candidates that they know their work and they are doing their work. Could this cabinet secretary be one of the 3 people at an investigation? Thank you.
Okay.
I think for my 1 minute,
yes.
Chairman, I think we have spoken a lot and we have given our views as the UDA and Kenya Kwanza coalition. But there is one question that we need clarity from your end as the presidential returning officer. Which form exactly are you going to be using for tallying the presidential result? We have the form 34A and we have the form 34B. And supposing the form 34B has an error and is not indicative of what happened at the polling center, the form 34A, which forms are you going to tally the presidential vote? If you can clarify that, that is important. Assume in a worst case scenario that form 34B has an error. It has not captured exactly what was captured at the tallying center, at the polling center. Will the parties have an opportunity, now that we would have taken photographic image of the form 34A, will we have an opportunity to relay information to you, so that if during the transmission there is a problem with what is being transmitted, it's exactly different from what was the real form from form 34A? What is the commission going to do? Without overemphasizing what has been raised by Professor Kindiki on the Electoral Code of Conduct that was signed by all candidates. Chairman, we did a letter to you complaining about Jacaranda. You did respond to us, but through the media. Our concern is this. Candidates are tweeting and saying they're the ones who are in control of certain chaos that have been meted out in places like Jacaranda. Why wouldn't the commission take action against such candidates, including suspending or expelling them or removing them completely from the race? That is the only way you can send a message we still don't have a satisfactory answer from your end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me say a few things. And after you say you put some of these things in writing, so we shall adequately respond. You wanted to make closing remarks? I heard you several times. Yeah, please make it brief.
Yes. My running mate will give our closing remarks, please, because we will work as a team. And we'd like to do them from in front there. The camera isn't getting the right shot.
Please keep to the
Yes, we will keep the 2 minutes. We'll give from here. We don't know. We don't know why we had to be pushed to that corner, but it doesn't matter.
Keep to the agenda of the meeting. Yes. Keep to the agenda of today's meeting. Yes. The politics will be. I wrote to you for today's meeting. I itemized the issues. Please. Yes. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, the commissioners, our competitors, and everyone else. Ours is a closing remark that is brief. The IBC, we thank the IBC for inviting us. Allow me to read. The IBC, we thank you for inviting us for this meeting. It has been very useful. I reiterate our earlier position that the support for electronic voter registration, we are for that as option A and option B. In our manifesto to be launched in the next few days, we support, and we still insist we are supporting, the ICT technology. I am in it, and I know it is possible to have credible elections dependent on ICT. IBC, Mr. Chair, you have done a good job, and anything borders intimidation, don't allow it. The ground has changed. Kenyans are depending on you. Do what is right. We know that your job is not easy. During the nomination, we learned that some of your staff did not sleep for 3 days. Going to the 9th, 2022, you might even go for a week or so without sleep. You have our prayers, and because we shall be praying for you, you shall overcome. For Kenyans, please keep peace and more peace. Elections come and go. Don't fight. Our request is to vote and change leaders. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what in that is outside your agenda? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can add you another minute. Okay.
Yes, please come. I have been vaccinated.
I believe those are closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, let me apologize for coming late. It was not intentional. You're aware, we had gotten an earlier communication that this meeting would start at 11. And unfortunately, our Secretary General called us last night that there was a change of time, and we had already scheduled a meeting, so I apologize for that. But having said that, I would request that in future, we should at least give us maybe 3-4 days notice of the actual timings, because you understand, Mr. Chairman, every minute counts when you are a few days to the election. Secondly, we have participated in elections. This is not different from all the other elections we've participated in. We believe that the IEBC has built sufficient capacity to handle this election. All we want, Mr. Chairman, is what you're doing. Engagement, continuous engagement. We will continuously engage your technical team with our technical team. And sometimes when we criticize, it's not because we have any issues. It's because we want the right thing. You know, I was once told by Paul Muite that when you support a government, you criticize it when it goes wrong. So sometimes when you see criticism, I think in that spirit. Two final things. Thank you very much. Two final things. We all agree that we are the digital highway is the place we are going. We support your commitment to the electronic register. We are trying to move our parties to also have nominations like our competitors using an electronic register. So I think that's the direction we want to go. There has been notions that are not correct, that Kenya Kwanza wants a manual register. We do not want a manual register. If you give us sufficient safeguards that an electronic register will function without any chance of failure, then we are good. And finally, I was amazed at the number of staff, permanent staff, IEBC have. 800, in the region of 800 plus. Mr. Chairman, that's a very huge resource which Kenyans pay for. You should consider in future deploying that resource to help us with nominations in parties. I think really there should be a consideration because it's a national resource and they shouldn't be waiting to just run the elections. They can also help us run nominations in our parties with the expertise they have. In any case, Mr. Chairman, a democratic election will be heavily informed by the kind of nominations we do. If the nominations are not democratic, you end up with elections that are not democratic. So I think going forward, you should consider as IEBC working with political parties so that we can leverage more on the resource you have, which is a public resource, to assist grow political parties as institutions of governance. That because I believe that the strength of a democracy is dependent on the strength of the democratic institutions, including political parties that exist. Finally, we have no problem with any Kenyan serving in any capacity, so long as they have been recruited competitively and they have the requisite skills and competencies. We have absolutely no preference for any Kenyan from any community. And if our competitors have a problem with certain Kenyans who come from certain communities, you can work out with them. We have no problem if they are replaced. But we want every Kenyan to be given a chance, and the measure should not be ethnicity, the measure should be competence, whether they are competent to do whatever it is that they are doing. I am on record, Mr. Chairman, saying that even if my competitor's brother was the chairman of IEBC, I would have no problem, so long as he is competitively recruited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sure that the president has been vaccinated, so there's no risk. Let me say, Mr. Chairman, that we, as I said earlier, we appreciate very much you and the Commission and your staff for making yourself available to us and to our competitors to have this dialogue. I think of the political parties represented here, I can say that we in Azimio are the ones who have had historical grudges with the electoral body. Previous to yourselves, there was the ECK. We had issues with them. I know that it's no secret. You know we've had issues with this commission before. The courts have adjudicated that matter. But I want to say that we hope and trust that this time around that things will be different. And that's why we are here, to communicate with you, to dialogue with you, to fellowship together so that we can have this election be a credible election that Kenyans can accept and the world can celebrate. We have raised many issues, Mr. Chairman, and I think we've been in constant dialogue with each other over the past few months. We've written letters to you. We just want to make one entreaty to you and the Commission that when we write letters, would you please respond to us as quickly as possible, or at least communicate with us so that we can know when to expect a response. I just want to say that the issues that have been raised by my colleague here, Mr. Saitabao, about the ethnic imbalance in the Commission, these are not, light issues that should be taken lightly. I think you'll be providing, evidence of the questions he's raising. I hear what the Deputy President is saying, that he has no issue with Kenyans. And of course, we do not have issues with Kenyans. But I think that the principle of inclusivity requires, as our Constitution dictates, that public bodies be representative, that they represent the people of Kenya and represent the face of Kenya. I think we've seen some discrepancies. I agree again with the Deputy President that merit is important, but our Constitution also dictates that we look at other vectors of identity, such as region, such as gender, such as disability. All these factors are important when you are constituting a public body like this one. So I think, we shall be giving you the information that we have, and we hope to dialogue with you. We do not want to assume bad faith until we get your answers. The Russians say trust but verify. So we are trusting first, but then we'll verify after we get your responses. So, Mr. Chairman, we are grateful to you and the Commission, and we look forward to a free and fair election. Thank you so much.
Roots Party, you have... Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Brano Cage. I'm the head of campaign secretariat for Roots Party, headed by Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya. Chairman, you may have noticed that we have donated a lot of our time to Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. It's because we really appreciate and understand the sensitivity and the magnitude of the work that you do. And most of the time, as politicians and political parties, we do not really take time to appreciate the kind of work that you're doing. So we continue to express our confidence in the work that you're doing. We'll continue to support the Commission where we are needed. And we are appreciating so much that you continue to engage us. And we hope that this will continue all the way to the general elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me stand. I've been sitting for too long. You have asked a lot of questions. The media. Now, let me deal with the questions, then I'll sit, allow the media before I finalize. Oh, you want me there? I thought you wanted to ask questions. Yeah, thank you. So in closing, I'll start off by saying that a number of issues which have been asked by our stakeholders, it's not audible. Are we okay now? No? Can I have another mic? Are we okay? Yeah, thank you. A number of questions will be answered by the technical team. Next week, Marjan, you convene that meeting. We invite two from each of the presidential candidates to deal with the technical issues. One of them being visitation to our factory, where we are preparing the KIMS kits. And a lot of questions then will be answered when you do the visitation, how the process is ongoing, how the SD cards will be loaded. There's a whole team working on that. The issue of the register will be, of course, addressed. The register will be shared with the stakeholders and broken down up to the, I believe, polling stations. You'll have that information so that you can also prepare for the big day. Visitation to the ballot paper factory, I think dates will be given when the team is going. Fortunately, IEBC does not have a budget to finance the stakeholders, so we shall ask you to look into your kitty, but the dates and arrangements will be made for purpose of visa arrangements and travels, and of course, being welcome to the other side. So issues around geofencing, the technical team will give you more information, anything to do with the KIMS kits, and other questions that you are burning to be informed. I only want to comment on two issues. Of course, our presiding officers work under regulations, and the entire IEBC team works under the election regulations. So they don't make laws on the ground as they stand. We work under a legal framework. I just want to comment on two issues. One, the result is from that 4A. That's the result we are going to use. That's the result the National Returning Officer will be tabulating to ensure that whatever is in that 4B corresponds with that 4A. The result at the polling station is final and cannot be changed. If there are errors, we shall note the errors. We have created an error form, and that form then will be shared with the court. If there's any petition in the Supreme Court, the results will be submitted together with the error forms. What we are saying this time round is, candidates, please have your agents at polling stations. Agents get copies of the results, and you can then share with whoever is managing the candidates. And when we meet at Bomas or at the National Tallying Center, let us then compare notes. The commission will have the results. If you have any issue with the end of the results, point it out. The agents will have, the commission will have, the media will be having those results, so that we move this process smoothly. And the commission has result forms, will be printed. Our result forms also have security features. So don't bring us any form We shall, it's a serialized, it's printed. We shall only look at the forms which we know are genuine forms. So don't bring us a form which doesn't belong to the commission. So together, if we work together, I think we shall then deliver a believable, as Professor Macau says, you say trust. I think we shall have reached that level. Beyond that aspect of any doubt. Code of conduct, candidates, political parties, you signed the code of conduct. In 2017, the commission enforced the code of conduct to the fullest. We had 71 cases. We heavily fined individuals who breached the code of conduct. We disqualified 2 of them from participating in elections when they failed to pay the fines. This time round, we gazetted the election date on 20th January and commenced then the code of conduct. But one of the individuals went to court, and the court made a judgment that the commission's code of conduct enforcement committee is unconstitutional. Now, that then took away all the teeth the commission has to bite on any misbehavior as a result of the code of conduct. The commission's code of conduct committee arises from the Constitution. Article 884 provides that the commission shall come up with a code of conduct. So here we were being told that it's unconstitutional, yet it's a creature of the Constitution. So we filed an appeal in the Court of Appeal, which came up for hearing yesterday, and the Court of Appeal has set the judgment for the 4th of November. We all know 4th of November we shall be done with the elections. Now, what are we left with? We are told we cannot summon those candidates who are breaching the code of conduct, or political parties, or all the people bound by the code. We don't have, then the court has taken away from us the powers to issue summons. And so what we are left with is, if you write to us, you have issues about the campaigns out there, all we do is forward your details, our complaint to the DPP. That's what we are left with. And we're also left with preaching peace and telling you candidates, please campaign peacefully out there because this is our country. Don't be violent because we all care about this nation. So that is where we are as far as the code of conduct is concerned. But we shall continue engaging. We shall impress upon the DPP to prosecute. We shall issue press statements as and when events unfold, and call upon you to campaign peacefully. But we don't have the powers to summon you because they have been taken away from us by the court. You are in competition. You are not enemies. And so far, as I said, I'm happy that the candidates, the presidential candidates, have behaved well, except a few incidents we have witnessed. Please avoid those incidents of violence. Our team is here. Please leave your technical team behind as we go to harmonize the campaign schedules that may be clashing. We don't want any clashes of campaign schedules. You can agree. This is our country, and whatever examples you set is what the Kenyan voter down there will have to follow. So mine is just to thank you for coming. This is the beginning of other meetings we may have. For those of you who are not here, I've invited you for the national conference on the 11th and 12th of July, where all the candidates will be given some minutes to make remarks. We expect 500 Kenyans to attend the national conference, and there will be also some international speakers. So thank you very much for coming. I'm told lunch is served, and we look forward to further engagements, and I also look forward with my team to give Kenyans a free, fair, and credible election. Asante sana.
Thank you very much. The presidential candidates and their delegates, including the IEBC commissioners, will have lunch at Terrace. Okay. The other participants, including media and security, conservatory area, I think it is upstairs, conservatory restaurant. The technical team for the presidential candidates, the technical team are requested to remain behind.
Good afternoon, and for the last 3 hours or so, we have been at the Windsor Hotel, at least had a live feed there where IEBC was meeting with the 4 presidential candidates, and the key agenda, although a lot of things have been raised in that meeting, but the key agenda was on the voter register, the manual or the digital one. IEBC maintaining that they intend to use the digital register as opposed to any manual voter register. For the last 3 hours or so, of course, we have had also issues raised about the ballot papers, as well as also about the forms, or which form will be used. The IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, there laying it bare. Of course, Deputy President William Ruto came a little bit late, but the Azimio coalition party leader and the running mate had to go out because they said that they have also other engagements and left their team there. But because of the interest of time, allow me to introduce my panel here. Of course, we had Azimio La Umoja coalition deputy party leader, but she had to go because of duty, of course, and I'm left here with the 2 gentlemen. On my right, we have Churchill Saoke, who is a leadership and governance expert. He's a resident analyst as well, and he is also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, JKUAT. Churchill, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And earlier on, we also had engaged a senatorial candidate, Democratic Party senatorial candidate for Nairobi County, William, karibu sana.
Thank you, Joey.
Gentlemen, in a nutshell, beginning with you, Churchill, is that a lot of issues have been raised, but some of the things that the IEBC have talked about is like they are cast in stone, and especially when it comes to the voter register.
Yes, I mean, this, you see, the most important thing, the first most important thing in the election is the question of the voter identification. And, you know, if the voter cannot be identified, then it provides an opportunity for malfunction in the electoral process. And this is one of the reasons why the issue of voter identification is very key. The mode in which this is supposed to be done, also considering that previously there has been issues around this where the questions of dead voters came in. So I think this is one of the reasons why the presidential candidates from all across the board are raising this as a key issue, because, you know, everybody does not want any gray area where any that can create non-level play, unfair level play for each and every, for any of the participants. The other thing is the questions of the legality of the process. Remember that, you know, all these elections are guarded by an electoral regime, legal regime. So the electoral body is bounded to follow the legal process, from the identification to even the balloting and also even to the transmission.
Yeah. And William, yes, looking at what the Deputy President has said, Azimio raised the concerns about they want at least the manual voter register to be there, at least to act as backup. IEBC talking about in each and every polling station will be having about 6,000 backup kits to ensure that you are captured as opposed to the manual voter register. What is your take on that? Deputy President is okay with that, but the Azimio still have raised some pertinent issues.
But when you look at it, I really don't think he has actually accepted that he is really happy with it. If you looked at him properly, the key thing is that they want the assurance, and the assurance has not been given by IEBC. It was just left hanging. But just to be there, to show that actually you are not the one blocking anything. You just say, we accept it. But they have not been answered in terms of whether that system will work. That's the first one. Secondly, on the 6 extra kits you are talking about, I would want actually to get from IEBC. They had actually talked of, in 2017, there were 3 extra. Now there are 6. What did they use to actually be able to come up with? We need in any ward, in the polling center, we need 6 extra. What is that they used to know they need 6?
And in 2017 we had 3.
So that's a big, a major issue. And secondly, you have had a number of the parties asking, how do we get to know what has been populated in the kits? And even with all our agents, nobody will be able to actually be able to go and be able to seek and understand what is inside there. So we are still in the dark. Maybe the 6 extra will be might be the ones that will have all the populated things inside. So there's still a question that's a gray area.
Yeah, that's something that, of course, will raise a lot of questions. But because of the interest of time, and it was raised, the issue of ballot paper printing. The farm itself has been questioned. Even today, it has been announced today, but it has also been questioned because of the issue we saw in Nigeria. Could that be something that could raise issues later on or open up a can of worms?
You know, and these all things, when you talk about the integrity of the process, it's end to end. And as you have said, even the point of the production of the papers. Remember, the integrity of the ballot is as key as the integrity of the ballot. If any presidential candidate or any candidate in the electoral process is able to have control of the production, and not even the production, have control and have access to the ballot itself before the election, then that whole ballot system is flawed. So the point where these productions are done is very important. So if there has been any credibility dent on the company that is producing these, it still raises issues. But you see, when I looked at what the commissioner was saying, you see, there are, right now, even if we raise some of these questions, these are processes that they have already done. All they can do is to do what Professor was doing, to defend the process, to defend the tendering system, to defend the procurement, because they do not want to go back. Going back to them might mean that you're going to delay the election. So they might not want to go that direction. But even looking at it in future, there is need for the commission. You know, when the commissioner was starting, he said something very dangerous, that, you know, he does not know. That is a very dangerous statement that dents on, you know, it dents on the process and on the commission. The commission has got a responsibility to be and take charge of the tendering process of that kind of tender, because you see, what is being tendered has got political undertones. And all those political undertones are things that they will take responsibility on. So they cannot leave everything to the Secretariat.
Okay. And William, perhaps you can, as we wind up, you can
just touch on the ballot paper.
Yes.
I just want to really understand, you know, we were put to understand how secure that ballot paper is. But if you look at the Kenyan content, our biggest question is not about how how sealed and how many. You talked about each kind of seals and whatever, but our problem is not about the elections having fake ballot papers coming in. Our problem is in the tallying of the figures and the kind of staffing that goes on. So whether that the new company that you're talking about has all that capacity, that is not, to us, it's not a big deal. Even when he says that, just, you know, he talks of a small tender. I don't think that should not have been put that way.
All right.
Ours is a big thing.
Okay. All right, a lot of issues have been raised, but gentlemen, allow me to close this because we also have to go to the news. Irene Muchuma Odim is currently on standby, but a lot of issues have been raised, but we will be bringing you up to the minute information regarding what has been said today and breaking it down for you. Of course, it's going to form some kind of discussion in the coming days, but that is exactly what we want. Exactly 40 days to the general pause. Everything cleared. That is what Kenyans want. Thank you so much indeed for watching. I'm Ben Troy Njue. Thank you for keeping us company. News is coming up next.